Lefties and righties unite. It's Live from the Center with Stoney Richards on KDKA.
Yeah! It's a Saturday Night Blues. Well, that's good. Welcome back. It's Stoney Richards here. Our number's 866-391-1020, 866-391-1020. The Dollar Bank Instant Access at KDKA.com is always yours, my dear friend. And with us on the KDKA 84 Lumber Newsmaker Hotline from our CBS studios at WWJ in Detroit.
Yes.
I don't know why I'm hearing echo in this, but it sounds like 1950s radio.
Oh, that's great. I love Echo. It's all right. I can deal with it.
He's in Detroit. He's a true lover of radio. I think we're going to have to turn this down, James.
Yeah.
Art, you got to turn your volume down there. Oh, my God. I feel like I'm talking to a regular listener. You're a true lover of radio, a writer, a video artist, and historian, and he's come to be known as radio's best friend. Say hello to my friend, a little stressed this afternoon, Art Volo. Welcome to KDKA. Art?
Tony, can you hear me okay?
Of course I can. How are you?
Well, you know, it's a joy to finally be coming off the big, tall tower out in Allison Park, Pennsylvania.
There's a discussion, and I go back to my days in Detroit at Wayne State University in mass communications talking about the first radio stations in America. And I think it's interesting that you're at a CBS station up in Detroit. I'm, of course, at the CBS station here in Pittsburgh, the first radio station in America, KDKA. But there's always been this discussion, and I'm glad that you're there doing this conversation from that point, because WWJ in Detroit has also said that they were the first radio station. Is that correct, Art?
It's a technicality, okay, because WWJ went on the air on August 20th, 1920. KDKA went on the air on November 2nd of that year, and so it becomes a matter of, okay, technically the station in Detroit was on the air first, but they were on the air as 8MK. In other words, it had experimental call letters, and then they went off and on and off and on, and they didn't come back on as WWJ for a while after that.
The first commercial radio station, the first commercial and licensed radio station in America, though, is KDKA, which also had the strange 8XK, but then they gave the call letters KDKA to the station because those were the next ones available. And here we are, and then it was November 2nd, 1920, the election results on the night of Tuesday, November 2nd, 1920, from KDKA.
Do you remember who the election was?
I believe it was Al Gore that ran, wasn't it?
Right. No, it was Harding Cox were the two candidates. And believe it or not, the Cox family is the same Cox family that owns a bunch of radio stations all over the country, including WSB in Atlanta, the voice of the South.
It was meant to be. You know, in my reading and looking at some of this stuff, and you prompted some of this stuff in me to look some of this stuff up, Leo Rosenberg, it turns out, was the first announcer. And I believe, Art, was he not called Rosie on the radio back in those days?
It may have been, but listen, look, Stoney, I'm just proud to be able to say that I know how to pronounce Carnegie. I know where Moon Township is, and I still can't spell Aliquippa, you know, but I know it. And I also remember that, if memory serves, that the Squirrel Hill Tunnel on the way out to Monroeville from downtown was the first tunnel that you could hear radio all the way through the tunnel. And I think it was Westinghouse that did that just so you could hear KDKA through the tunnel. Unfortunately, you could also hear everybody else.
Well, Art, you know, in those days, in the 1930s, that's absolutely true. But there were people that were stuck in the Squirrel Hill tunnels in 1930 that are still in there. They're still waiting to get out.
I truly believe that. And also, I wanted to just remind you guys that I remember all the way back when I started listening to this radio station. It was back when Reach Cordick was on in the morning. It was Cordick and Company. The people, names you'll remember like Art Palin and Clark Race, and of course the beloved John Cigna. And believe it or not, Stoney, I was listening to John Cigna on WOWO, WOWO in Fort Wayne, before he ever got to to Allegheny County. So
well, and the funny thing is, both Art and I grew up in Detroit, in Ypsilanti, and me in Detroit, and we hung out at radio stations and got to know each other for our love for radio. But I remember, and now here I am in Pittsburgh listening and going, hey, we got KDKA.
Yeah, we picked it up at the Big 1020. Anyway, so, really am glad I did. I went over to John Cigna's house and with a video camera, and I interviewed him and got all his thoughts about radio and about those wonderful charity spaghetti dinners he used to do and everything.
Oh, yeah.
Boy, what a treasure. What a treasure those things are now.
Well, and the beautiful thing about Cigna is that he was around and kind of was the end point of just when talk radio started to get a little nasty and mean and very political, which is kind of where I jumped off, and went, at first it was kind of interesting, and then you went, oh my God, please stop. And now it seems to be on the wane, and you have conversations with real people like yourselves, like what I love to do. And you can drive along with the radio station and go, oh, I didn't know that, or you learn something, and nobody's going to yell at you or hang up on you, right?
Yeah, remember Bob Grant was the guy in New York that was, shut up and get off my phone, and he started, listen, let me play a little trivia with you and the listeners.
Oh, I'm bad.
Can you name, now there are 4 radio stations on the east side of the Mississippi. Now there's a whole bunch of W's out west. But there's a very few K's on the east side of the Mississippi. Now, 2 of them are in Pittsburgh, right?
Right.
KDKA, KQB.
Right.
All right.
I know.
And then come on. And then they're no threat to you, trust me. And the other one with 3 letters is?
KFWB. And KNX in Los Angeles.
No, I'm saying it's in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
You don't know?
I don't know. Apple Computer?
Oh, it's KYW in Philadelphia, which is a sister station in the CBS family.
I'll have to listen. I hear they're very good.
They are. They're 1060, not too far from you guys. Anyway, so the 4th radio station with a K, and this is real good trivia, is in Spring Arbor, Michigan. Do you remember where Spring Harbor even is?
I have no. Benton Harbor, yes. Spring Harbor, I have no idea, Art.
Small town just outside of Jackson, Michigan, which is west of Ann Arbor and straight south of Lansing. And there's a small college there called Spring Arbor College. I think it's a Christian college. And they wanted to take an old radio station in Marshall, Michigan, which had gone dark, as they say. They lost their license. So they applied for it, and they didn't put any call letters in. So the FCC got the application and said, we'll take whatever call letters you give us. So they wrote in there KTGG, because they thought when they saw Spring Arbor MI, they thought MI was either Mississippi or Missouri.
You're going way deeper than we need to go.
Isn't that amazing? I mean, the FCC, our own government, didn't know MI stood for Michigan, so they called up and said, no, we're in Michigan. We need a W. And the guy at the FCC said, if that's what it says, that's what you are. And they've had them ever since. So
our numbers here are 866-391-1020, 866-391-1020. Art Volo is with us, billed as radio's best friend, and you have been for years because you have done all sorts of videos, and I guess have probably visited every major and probably minor radio station in America. You have always been in love with radio.
I haven't, and I just wanted to make it clear that the moniker given to me as radio's best friend is not something I came up with. I am not like Howard Stern, who self-proclaims himself the king of all media, or the late Michael Jackson, who said, I am the king of pop. That moniker was given to me by a name that I know you know, and that's Scott Shannon.
Scott Shannon, my gosh. That is a name I know, and I want to talk about some of the people that you have met along the way, personalities when radio personalities were true personalities, and some of the things that you have done along the way that have kept this art form alive. So, and folks, if you have any questions for Art, you can certainly give a call. We'll keep him here for a couple of breaks here, 866-391-1020. Our number's here, and then we will talk some Beatles later after 6 o'clock tonight. I'm Stoney Richards, and you are live from the center. It is News Radio 1020 KDKA. So I think we got our line noise figured out there. You see, when you talk to the first radio station in America, you got to get all your lines in order. So we will take your calls at 866-391-1020. Continue with Art Volo, who is a wonderful guy who loves the crazy stuff like this that happens on radio.
Why
and perhaps you would like to find out. Believe me, if you lost track of a radio person, Art will know where that person is or is buried, I guarantee you. And we'll talk more with him on our 84 Lumber Newsline as we continue on this Saturday night. Stoney Richards live from the center. It is News Radio 1020 KDKA.
From the Lexus of North Hills Studios, this is the voice of Pittsburgh. News on KDKA now.
We will be listening, Shumway and Larry. News Radio 1020 KDKA, Stoney Richards with you live from the center on this Saturday here. Your calls welcome, as always, 866-391-1020. And, of course, your comments at the Dollar Bank Instant Access at KDKA.com. We go back to our guest on the 84 Lumber Newsline, Mr. Art Volo. He is with us in
Stoney.
Detroit, Michigan. Somebody found the pot that was up, and I'm not talking marijuana, Art.
No.
Art, how did your love for radio begin? I mean, because I remember hanging around radio stations with you, and we're about the same age. But
I got a little crystal radio and a little AM radio that was right next to my bed, and I fell asleep to it every night.
To Lee Allen on the horn?
No. You know why? No. I was still. I hadn't moved to Michigan yet. Okay. I was still, believe it or not, let me see if this is. Can you still hear me okay?
I can hear you fine, Art. Just keep talking, please.
All right.
Anyway,
I was listening to this station, to KDKA.
Okay.
There was a talk show called Party Line.
Oh, yeah.
And it was featuring husband and wife, Ed King and Wendy King.
Yeah.
And they did this show from 10 to midnight, and I fell asleep to it every night of the week. And Wendy is still alive, still vibrant, still living in the same house in Green Tree, probably a mile and a half of where your studios are, and she's just terrific.
She was listening and said, "Why do you have such horrible sound in that first segment?" I'm kidding.
Well, I would be surprised.
And my next question to you, Mr. Art Volo, who is talked to every disc jockey around the country and with love, and you always make everybody look good, and I think that it's a service that you've performed even when you were just listing radio stations on the back of car rental cards, and I remember that back in the 60s very vividly.
Well, that's right. I had a company, Stoney, for over 33 years called the Radio Guide People.
Yeah.
And I actually published and circulated throughout the country in association with great local stations in every city that we did the promotion in. I put out over 100 million of those little radio guides. But the internet kind of did me in.
I was just going to say, that was before the internet.
Yeah, before the internet. Now people can get anything they want, except for Alice, on the internet.
No, you can. You can get Alice on the internet. Yeah. .com, I believe. Why have you never had a radio show yourself?
Oh, I did. In Ann Arbor back in the mid '60s.
But I mean, continued on.
I don't want to do it. It's fun to do it occasionally, but it satisfies my urge. In fact, I was on the air in Ann Arbor the night that those riots broke out in Detroit back in 1967.
Well, and you have been at various radio stations and in various towns when very historic things have happened. You did a wonderful 9/11 tribute.
Yes, I did. I'm very proud of that.
Back 10, when that happened. What was it, the year after that you did that?
Well, no, I did it. No, I did it in January.
Oh, January. Okay, right.
And we showed it in New York. at a radio awards thing called the AIR Awards. AIR, A-I-R, stood for Achievement in Radio.
Right.
And believe it or not, halfway through, they stopped the video because the audience couldn't handle it. It was that strong. And you can see all this on my website. Would I be too self-serving to mention the website?
No.
Okay.
Oh, heavens.
Because
it's alice.com. No, it's not. No.
No, people can go to my website, and it's well, you don't have to do the wwws anymore. Now it's just Volo Video.
And it's V-U-O-L-O.
Right, V-U-O-L-O, V-I-D-E-O, Volo Video, and it's all there.
Caroline says, what about Ed and Wendy King? They were the best. I listened to them every night as a kid. She says, put Wendy back on.
Well, I tried to get her today. I called her earlier, and she sadly had an appointment she had to be at, and she couldn't come on with us. But if we ever do this again, we're going to put her back on KDKA.
Oh, my gosh. Wouldn't
that be wild?
Yeah. Well, she just texted me and said, Art called me, had a bad connection. So I don't know what that was all about.
Well, Ed died back in 71, and the show ended right shortly after that. It was on from 51 to 71, so it had a 20-year run on KDKA, which today would be a lifetime.
Were you instrumental in when KDKA was downtown and they had the bricks? Didn't you start the thing with the bricks from the original building?
No, actually, a very good friend of mine who worked in the KDKA news department at the time, her name was Rob Milford, and he's a great newsman, a real news hound.
Yeah.
And Rob went over to where the building was in East Pittsburgh. I guess it was the Westinghouse Electric Company building, which is where the first broadcast emanated from.
Wilkinsburg, yeah.
Right, and he went and picked up a lot of those bricks. It was just really a collector's item. And one of those bricks is proudly sitting on the windowsill in Dan Mason's office in New York, and he is the president of CBS Radio.
Or as we call him, the Lord Master of the Realm.
And one of the nicest guys ever. You know why, Stoney? Because he started out as a DJ.
You understand, but once you're in the studio and behind the mic, you understand how you deal with things. And it's funny, Art, I wanted to get to, because you've been to so many radio stations, just as a visitor and as a friend, as a chronicler of things that happen. It is amazing, and we lose this in this day and age of Internet. When you walk through this building, through KDKA, and you see the awards and the pictures from way back, and you want to at first dismiss it and go, oh, my God, that was the 1930s. But then you look, and there's Bill Clinton, and there's George Bush, and, presidents that have delivered speeches from these microphones here. It's amazing.
And you're when I meet people from Pittsburgh, and the first thing I say is I can speak the language. And then I go, KDKA Pittsburgh. I mean, it is probably one of the best known, most recognized audio logos in the business.
Oh, yeah. And, even to this day, and it's wonderful when I call around for guests and talk with people, and they always say, oh, my gosh, KDKA? It's like the first radio station in America. It's an amazing thing. It's a wonderful little moniker to have, and we're lucky to have it.
It truly is. In fact, real quickly, I want to get this in.
Yeah.
Some of the things that I have been able to record, and I'm the only one who recorded them, was Paul Harvey's last speech to the radio industry.
Oh, my.
Okay, I did that. I didn't know it was his last speech, but it did turn out to be. I have a keynote that I recorded in Nashville at a country radio seminar by Minnie Pearl.
Oh, howdy.
Where she even says what the famous call letters WSM of the Grand Ole Opry actually stand for. And you probably didn't know this either, but it was put on by an insurance company, and the insurance company's slogan was, "We shield millions."
There you go.
And that's what it stands for. and a name you definitely know, J.P. McCarthy here in Detroit.
Of course.
I shot the last video of him, the last video of Bob Collins at WGN Chicago, and sadly, the last video Of Larry Lujack.
You know, you lead me perfectly into when we were growing up in Detroit. As folks were growing up here in Pittsburgh, I'm sure they were going, and I've heard this from folks saying, I picked up CKLW because it was just like across the Allegheny River, the Detroit River in Canada.
Right.
But we would drive, 8 Mile or Woodward and go, I got KDKA, I got Larry Lujack, we got WCFL, all those great, KYW, all those great stations, and WABC in New York. And it was, the internet kind of hurts that now because you could listen to all these unique and different radio stations. And even in the days of rock and roll, Art, the music, not every station in every town played exactly the same music. So
That's right. Every station, stations all had their individual sounds, and they did things today that by today's standards people wouldn't believe. I got to tell you a quick 20-second story, and it has to do with the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
Ah, yes.
Okay? Believe it or not, do you know where Carlisle, Pennsylvania is?
Well, yes, of course.
Okay, right outside Harrisburg. All right. There was a station there, W100.
Okay.
It was WIOO. It was W100. It was at 1,000 on the AM dial. All right. When they signed off, and because they had to go off the air because WCFL in Chicago was on that same frequency.
Okay.
So when they signed off, they said, stay tuned for WCFL Chicago, because that way you'll keep your radio on that spot on the dial and be there for them when they came back on in the morning. Isn't that outrageous?
It was all a wonderful game, and it was all geared to the listener and, of course, the business of keeping people to, don't touch that dial.
I know.
And it, I guess I'm giving away our age, but I've always loved the ability to drive across the country or anywhere when you could tune the dial on your radio and just, that station would kind of come in with a crackle and then it would kind of fade out and fade in, but you got that station and all the great disc jockeys.
I know. And Stoney, now look, everybody can hear everything crystal clear on their smartphones, on their computers, on their internet radios. My friend Dennis, who works behind the counter, and he said he'd give me free postage for a year if I said his name. He said, I got it written down here, KDKA radio.com. I'm going to listen.
Well, and that's the amazing thing. When you used to be on a 50,000 watt radio station like this, or WGAR in Cleveland.
Right.
I got picked up in Sweden or London. Now you are getting picked up in Sweden and London because it's all over the world at KDKA.com.
And it doesn't fade out.
No. I missed the crackle, by God.
I know. I'm the same way. But it's so marvelous to be able to do all this, and all these different companies have their own little what is CBS has radio.com, I think.
Yeah. And CBS is probably at the forefront of trying to find a way to make that whole thing, better for the listener and profitable as well. But at the same time going, how can we get what we're doing to everybody, and we share our platforms? And that's why I think it's so cool that you're at our station in Detroit at WWJ. Here we are using studios.
You remember
Are they paying you rental for that studio?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
You're going to get a big bill for this one. No, you remember it was Westinghouse.
Yeah.
I mean, and I was sorry to see the Westinghouse name go, but the CBS name was bigger, and that's why CBS stayed. But in the old days, you could be sure if it's Westinghouse. And they used to say, even your sister station WBZ in Boston, it was Westinghouse Broadcasting, WBZ Boston, and it was like Westinghouse was such a proud name. And there was even a font that they came up with, you probably remember, of a particular style of lettering that all of the Westinghouse, or as they were later known, Group W stations were known as. And this is before Alice's Restaurant, talking about the Group W bench. Remember where all the perverts sat? Those would be the DJs at most radio stations.
Our Dollar Bank Instant Access at KDKA.com brings us Mikey, who says, Art, as we were talking about, Larry King was fabulous on the radio. He told great stories, and Paul Harvey, too.
Yes.
God, and that was another thing I remember going across the country, or where, from Ohio to Detroit to wherever, and hearing Paul Harvey at 8:30, and then you'd be in another time zone, and then it was 8:30 there, and you'd hear Paul Harvey again.
Yeah. He was the voice of America. I mean, there was I used to kid Mr. Harvey and tell him, I actually did tell him this. I said, I hope that you have pre-recorded your own eulogy, because nobody could do a eulogy like he could.
Absolutely
and I mean
right.
He was the best.
when Art comes into a radio station, folks, and he's done videos, and these are now online. You can see your favorite old DJs because we're all old now. But when Art comes in, you've got to be careful what you say because Art usually precedes himself with a camera, and I've always found that amazing. Have there been stations where people have said,
they wouldn't let
Art,
me
no,
in?
yeah, no camera.
Well, okay. There were 3 radio personalities that never would let me record them. Jonathan Brandmeier in Chicago, although he's softening up a little now. Rick Dees never would let me do Rick Dees in L.A., and I think that's because he used an old studio control board with the round, we call them pots, but they're the volume controls on the board. Right. And he didn't want anybody to see that he worked with an old board. And Howard Stern never let me into his studio, but they're the only 3.
Art Volo is with us in our studio from our studios in Detroit. 84 Lumber Newsline. Our number's 866-391-1020. Mary says, sorry, what name could be bigger than Westinghouse? He practically invented electricity. Art, will you stay with us? I want to talk about some of the characters you've met along the way as we continue in our final segment. Art Volo with us here. News Radio 1020. We are back live from the center. Our number's here, 866-391-1020, 866-391-1020. And, of course, you can always reach us, the Dollar Bank Instant Access at KDKA.com. With us on the 84 Lumber Newsline, staying with us for another segment, is radio's best friend, Mr. Art Volo, is with us. Art?
Wait, Stoney,
what?
You mean the phone line is sponsored?
Oh, you bet.
84 Lumber?
Oh, you bet. Oh, you.
I mean,
yes. Say it loud and say it proud.
Aren't you afraid that with the lumber company sponsoring the phone line that people might be bored?
Don't make me hit you with a 2x4. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Hey.
Look, that's the best I can come up. Oh, wait a second. I enjoyed hearing that commercial about Terry's Plumbing.
There you go.
I don't know who voiced
tonight.
I don't know who the guy was on the commercial, but he had nice pipes.
We're done with our segment with Art Volo, ladies and gentlemen.
You want to know why they took me off the air?
They wonder why Detroit's bankrupt. Hey!
Oh, by the way,
listen,
Stoney, very quickly, I have a KDKA mic flag at home that I was going to try and bring in here and put on the mic here at WWJ so it would look like I was in your studio. And I have a big banner with your call letters that I was going to hang behind me, but...
Put them in front of you so you don't forget them. Well, next time you're in town, you come up to the massive studios here, and we'll be fine. Names: Dave Garroway, Clark Race.
Now wait, well, Dave Garroway was primarily remembered for TV.
But he started here. At
I
KDKA.
know, but you ask most people, and they'll say Today Show's first host.
Absolutely, but I was amazed to see it was like Dave Garroway worked. Are you kidding?
Well, a lot of people worked there.
Well, it's. I
mean, they hired you.
Amazing. There's that. There is that. Here I am.
Obviously, the standards have dropped, Stoney.
From WAYN. You know what I mean?
Oh, my God. But folks, he's making reference now to
college radio,
to a college radio station at Wayne State University, which is the same university that what famous guy on radio graduated from Wayne State?
Oh, what is it? I don't know. Yeah, see, I don't know any of this history.
Well, sadly, he's near death.
Are you talking about me?
No, I'm talking about Casey Kasem.
Okay, yes, that's right.
Yeah.
He did the Lone Ranger.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Yeah. People that you have met along the way, and the personalities that came, you don't find those kind of, and maybe that's not a bad thing, those kind of disc jockeys anymore that had that, they had the ability to entertain you, and look what they did for the music business. In this next segment, we're going to be talking about the Beatles. Look at what these guys did along the way to make it okay for the audience to go, and play all those songs. It's amazing.
Yeah, you're right. And I've met, when I was a kid, I remember standing outside of WABC studios in New York, waiting for Cousin Brucey to arrive so I could get his autograph.
Yeah.
Today, I have his home phone number, his summer home phone number, his private cell phone number, his private email address, and his address in New York City. So, it's funny how people that I idolize in worships, the same goes for Joey Reynolds.
Oh,
There's
sure.
another guy, an iconic radio figure who today nobody will even hire. Why? because he's over 65.
Yeah.
Oh, come on. This business, unfortunately, and TV is as guilty as radio is very discriminatory about age.
Well, I don't know if it's discriminatory. It's marketing, and it happens in all these businesses where you go, I got a younger, prettier, handsomer person available, and the audience is loving it. I mean, that's
which is
just
a shame.
how it goes.
You should be judged on your talent.
Well,
look, neither one of us are going to be doing any underwear ads soon. But
thank God.
But you're very talented, and that's why you've been on. Do your listeners know where you normally work? I don't want to let any.
Oh no, they know about Why I Want to Wait. But
okay.
But the thing about showing up is always something I've always taken to heart, because there are a lot of people running around who say, well, I'm a very talented person, but
mm-hmm.
The value of just showing up, getting on the air, taking the shift, doing the job, and finding an audience. And I think a lot of people think, well, I'm on the radio, I've done it now.
I know.
But find an audience and go, and as so many of these guys, Chuck Brinkman and all these people over the years have found audiences and kept them, and Tom Shannon and
great
Dick Burton,
names.
for gosh sakes.
Yeah, and so many of them have retired. Yeah. Did you see the trades
John
today?
Lanigan in
Cleveland. He's ready to hang it up. And did you see that today when I mentioned earlier that the radio's best friend was given to me by Scott Shannon? Scott Shannon announced he's hanging it up in New York.
I saw that.
After 22 years. I guess he must have watched Leno's last show and said, hey, 22 years, I guess that's long enough. So, it's just amazing.
Have you done stuff with television people as well, or have you always
not really.
You always radio?
Mostly always radio. Yeah, I like the medium a lot better. It's kind of like college football versus professional. I mean, I find college football more exciting because they're not a bunch of overpaid, spoiled brats.
Art, on that note.
I know.
I love you.
But you know what? I got to meet Myron Cope before he died. I always wanted to shake his hand.
Oh, he's a great man. He was a great man. He surely was. Art, as we said, this is going to go too fast, and it has.
I know.
I will talk to you again, and you come up here, and we'll get you live in the studio.
Can we do that?
Fun.
I want to do that.
Absolutely. Art.
And I want to bring Wendy up and put her back on KDKA. Okay, Wendy King.
Bring your camera.
All right. Well, I'm videotaping this whole thing right now.
I gotta go. Thanks for your time. Have a great weekend, my friend. Art Volo with us on News Radio 1020 KDKA.